Welcome back to our workshop. Today I'm working on this display cabinet that has a number of issues with it. A number of pieces have broken off, including this leg here that needs to be replaced. So there's some challenging work here that needs to get done. It's going to take woodworking skill. It's going to take some stain matching to make sure that this repair looks seamless. Stick with me. I'll show you how it's done.
As a furniture repair business, we're opening the doors to our workshop to show you the tools and techniques to repair furniture.
The front rail here, you can see this has been broken off.
We give you tips to make your repair projects easier. Let's get into the workshop and start fixing furniture.
Sponsored by Kennedy Hardware, offering restoration hardware for antique furniture. I'm working on a very delicate piece here. This piece has antique glass in it. It's very unique. It's a bubble-shaped type of glass. So what I want to do before I do any work on this is take the door off so I can protect that glass so I don't have anything that falls on this and causes some damage. Now this is a very awkward cabinet to work on. I can open the door here to get to the hinges, but it's difficult to take a door off this way. I can't stand it up that way because of what's on the back here. I've only got 3 legs, so I can't stand it up. So I'm going to have to build a temporary platform just so I can turn this upside down and get the door off. Now that the cabinet's stable, we can take a look at the glass. So the way you tell antique glass is by looking at the reflection in it. You can see here the imperfections in the glass. There's one over here. If I get just the right light, you can see there. So this is what's telling me this is antique glass. So this is something that can't be replaced. So I need to be very careful with it. And this glass down here is unique in that it has a convex shape to it. The glass on these panels is almost pillow-shaped. You can see the edge profile here when I move the door. I haven't worked with glass like this before, but if you're familiar with it, please share some information in the comments. I'll now take the screws out of the hinges, but I just wanted to show you the back here. This is fabric that's lining the back of this cabinet, similar to what you'd find in a steamer trunk. It's very unique. As I'm pulling out these screws, I noticed that there's a screw here, and this might help me in terms of repairing that leg. It looks like the legs might be held on with a couple of screws on the inside. If that's the case, that'll make this much easier to repair. So I've taken the bottom screws out first, and now I'm just removing the last top screw. And then what I can do is take this door, set it aside, and protect it until the cabinet is repaired. Repairing and restoring furniture really requires strong problem-solving skills. The challenge I've got here is how to repair this leg. Now, there's a shelf here that I'll need to take off to access this break, but it's also going to be very difficult if I have to repair this with this leg on. So that's why I'm hoping these 2 screws in here will help me take that leg off so that I can repair it and then put it back on. At the bottom of the leg here, you can see how it's broken off. The shelf is separated, and back here, this is separated as well. So this is all loose and ready to go. Let's see what I can do with these screws. Okay, so that's one out. Okay, let's see how this works. I am able to wiggle this a little bit, but this back here is nailed on, so I'll have to take those nails out. I'll use a block here to tap this out and see if I can loosen up those nails. This is a solid wood back, and it's starting to flex here. I'm afraid I'm going to break it. So I'm going to have to resort to another technique to get these nails out. There's one nail here that's a little bit raised, so I can put my tack lifter under there and pull that out. Wow, that's pretty tough. Okay, what I'll do is try my cat's paw instead and see how this works. Having a hard time grabbing onto that. Now there are techniques you can use to take nails out like this, but the easiest way to deal with this is with a nail set. What I'm going to do is drive those finishing nails through the panel, and that way I can take it off. When I put the panel back on, I'll put new nails in. There we go. With the panel loose here, I'm getting some good separation, but I think there are 2 nails left. With the light reflecting here on the surface, you can see there's a finishing nail that goes into the shelf, and there's one at the top as well. Hopefully, I can gently tap this out. Let's see. Yes. So there you can see the finishing nail. I'll tap the other one out, and this leg should be free. Well, it's not coming out here, but you can see the separation up here. If I give it a twist, you can see there's movement. So what that tells me is there's a nail coming through the top down here, so I'll need to pry that out carefully. So I don't want to damage the face here because that's visible. So what I'm going to do is tilt this leg this way to open up the gap at the back, put a wedge in as far as I can, and then pull it back the other direction. Wow, that almost makes me think there might be a screw in that, but that just doesn't make sense. So I don't really have a choice but to work off the front face here. I just need to keep putting more and more thickness of material under there to pull that out. There we go. So it turns out it was a screw after all. That is just odd construction. You would put a screw through a top like that. Now that I have this broken leg here, the piece that I need to put on here has to curve this way. So I'm going to put the cabinet down off the workbench, and that way I can inspect the other leg that we need to match. So you can see this curve here. This is the leg that broke off. So I need to patch on a piece of wood here that has the shape to it so these legs will match. There are a couple keys to success when patching in wood and matching a stain, and I'll walk you through those steps. But first, I want to let you know about our Fixing Furniture membership. We put together a program to give you benefits of becoming a member. That is, you can watch our videos before they get published on YouTube. You can also watch all of our videos without any commercial breaks, without any interruptions, so ad-free videos. We've added on top of that a community where you can online chat with people about furniture repair. And not only that, we have Fixing Furniture Live. Every 2 weeks, we get on to a live session and we can communicate, share information, chat, and answer your questions about fixing furniture. So check it out at fixingfurniture.com. The next step here, we're going to choose some material, so let's go to the lumber pile. In my wood storage pile, what I've done is I've labeled things by the length and the species. So here, I've got some hard oak, it's 16 inches. Here, 21 inches, this is maple. I'm looking for dark wood because I've got a dark finish. It's mahogany. Here's some dark wood. This is teak. This is mahogany. So this is the chunk of wood I need. So here's my piece of wood, but you might be wondering, why did I choose mahogany when looking at this? When you look at a finished piece of wood like this, it's very hard to identify the wood species that's underneath because of all the different colors that are added to it. But you can see here on the raw wood, I've got a good match here of this being mahogany. Why am I so concerned about matching the same wood species here when I'm going to cover it in dark stain? Well, the grain pattern is something that's unique in different types of wood. So if I've got a different grain pattern on this, it's going to make the patch more noticeable. Also, the staining process is going to be much easier if I'm using the same color of wood, because then I can mimic that. So this is key in terms of making sure that your patch is as disguised as possible. I've got some nails to take out here, and then what I'm going to do is trace out this leg here, get the shape I need, and then we can start looking at how to patch this together. Now we need a reference line here on the straight part because it's such a long, gentle curve. So if I put my ruler up here, I can see the curve is starting here. So I'll put my template on top, mark it underneath, and that's my reference point for sketching this out. I've gotten quite lucky with this piece of wood because you see the grain, how it goes straight here and then it curves. Well, if I put this on here, I can take advantage of that curve, and the grain goes this way, and it will keep that leg nice and strong. So down here, this is where I've got my reference point. I know that this is straight, so I have to line this up here, and then I know the shape that I've got. Now, I'm not going to cut the shape out right now, but I'm just going to sketch it on here. And then I've got some milling to do to prepare this stock, and I'll be cutting it out after I glue it together. Now this board is obviously too wide, so I need to cut it down so it's more workable, but also here it's way too thick. So what I need to do is cut that block out, make it thinner so it's going to match this, and then I can work at joining the pieces. I've now got my patch piece here, and I've made it slightly thicker than this piece, that way I can plane it down to fit. And rather than cutting it out and trying to attach it later, what I'm going to do is cut a machine cut here, so I've got a nice straight line, cut the matching line here, and then attach them. And then once I've got this into one piece, then I can retrace that line, cut out the part, and that will give me the leg I'm looking for. If you caught the spark on the cut there, you can see there's a nail inside here. I didn't see it on this side, but it was definitely there. The blade went through it. It does dull the blade a bit, but it doesn't ruin a blade, so that's a good thing. I've got now 2 perfectly machined cuts that will fit well together. So that'll provide a great gluing surface. I have a nail still in here. This is locating where the shelf goes, so I just need to clamp this on the bench so that it doesn't get in the way. I'm laying down some cardboard here because what I want is a little bit of difference between this gluing surface and the patch piece. So what I mean by that is when I glue these together, I want that patch to extend a little bit further, and that way I can plane that side, I can plane this side, and get it perfectly smooth. Okay, so I'm using a PVA glue for this. I want a permanent bond, so I'm just using a brush to make sure I get full coverage on here. I want glue on every part of this to make sure it's good and strong. Now when gluing pieces together, if you're gluing things end to end, there's just no strength in the grain. But when you're gluing things with the grain like this, you'll have really, really strong joints. So it's important to understand wood as you're going through and doing repairs like this. So I put glue on both sides. That way I make sure I don't miss a spot or get the glue too thin in one spot. Just extra insurance. So with PVA glue, you have to clamp it. This will not work if I were to just sit this down and push it together. So the clamping process here is when I clamp it, it's going to want to come apart. So the force is here. You can see as I squeeze, it wants to slide. So I've got a clamp here that I'm going to use with my workbench to control the length of how long this is. And then as I clamp the clamps on here, I won't have an issue with it trying to slide away on me. So first one here, the second one right here. So clamping time on this glue is 90 minutes. I'm going to let this sit for a couple of hours. And then it needs to sit for 24 hours before it's cured. And that means it's at full strength. And I can start working this into the piece I want. The glue's now cured, so I can start working this piece. Now, the first thing I do is just check that it's all straight. And I think you can see it here. We've got a straight board there, so that's great. This leg now needs to be shaped. So the first thing I need to do is check the height on it. So I'll mark the height with my white pencil here. And then we can lay out the part. So you can see here, this is the previous line right here for the leg. And that was too long. And that's why I cut this out afterwards. So here, I just need to line up my template right at the front, right at the back here. And now I can draw out the curve. This white pencil really works well in dark wood. If you're interested in that, I'll leave a link in the video description. So I'll set this back on here and you can see what this looks like. So you can see here it's duplicated the part, and this is what I need to cut out on the bandsaw. Here's the joint that I've glued up. So it's got a nice tight fit all the way around. It'll be perfect once I plane it down. So put the template on here, and you can see we've got an exact match. So I've got this side and this side profile down. I need to plane the thickness of this down properly, the other side, and just plane the ends here. And I can sand it down and get ready for the stain. So as I hold this up here, I realize I've got a good profile match, but what I don't have is a taper here. I didn't realize this was tapered, so what I need to do is make this thinner so it matches this leg here. If I stand one leg on top of the other, what I can do is center it and figure out where I need to make my marks. And it looks like the taper starts about there. So just transfer the marks. What I use is my finger as a guide against the pencil. I'll draw this line around, and I'm going to work from the back side because it's going to be easier to transfer that line and get a straight reference point. Now I just take a flexible ruler, line up my mark down here, line up the mark at the top, and that gives me the line to taper against. When planing down something like this, what I want to do is start planing here first, work my way back a little bit, plane a bit more, work my way back, plane a bit more, and that's how I'll get an eventual taper here because it's thicker here and much thinner up here. So there you go, it's now tapered. There is a bit of a height difference between this point and this point, but this is rounded over, so once I sand it and round it over, that will match as well. So I need to sand this out, I need to round over the edges, and we're ready for the stain. I finished sanding everything out here, and it's important to transition the old piece with the new piece. Make sure you get it right down to bare wood so you don't have a straight line. That's going to help disguise the repair. Now, I'm going to be using two different samples. I've got an acrylic stain and a dye stain. I'll be using those on some of these scrap wood pieces here. I've sanded them so they're going to be as smooth as what we've got, and that way I'm going to go through the full finishing process to match up what we've got here as best as I can. Now, working with dye stains, it can be a little bit confusing as to how to mix up the right color. So what I've got here is just a general mixture. It's giving me a little bit of brown, but you can see there's a little bit of red here. So I'll just wipe that off and see what that looks like. I think it's looking slightly too brown. So I'm just going to pull out red dye and add just a little touch and see how that shifts the color. How's that looking now? Yep, that's looking better. So I'll move that out of the way. There's a little bit too much red in there, so I'm just going to go back to my base color here, add it in, mix it around. So the color I'm looking for in here is similar to what's happening on this piece. So I'm just going to apply the stain, let that soak in, and then wipe it off. Dye stain dries very quickly. I've just got a little bit of a puddle here at the front, so I'll just wipe off the excess. So I'll let this dry, and then I can apply the top coat. The reason I'm putting a top coat on these stains is because it does shift the color a little bit. I'm using a shellac because I've got a shellac finish on the cabinet. And if you're not familiar with how to test finishes on furniture, this is an example of a downloadable reference sheet we've got for our Fixing Furniture members. If you join the membership, this is a download. You can print it off and put it in your work area or put it in a binder. So what I'm going to do is let this stain dry just a little bit longer. In the meantime, I'm going to go back to the display cabinet top and glue on those broken off pieces. I put a temporary leg on here so I can clamp the pieces on the top. And now I've got access that I can clamp on both sides here to assemble these pieces. So there are 4 of them. There's 2 on this side that broke off. There's another one here and another one here. And the interesting thing about these breaks is they broke where there were nails installed between the parts. You can see the nail hole here where that was put through, and you can see the spot for the nail there as well. I think the best approach in this is to glue up the parts and then I can nail them afterwards. Probably a pin nailer is the best way to put those on there, but I could also drill a pilot hole and then put the nails in as well. So I'll glue up the parts. So I'm using PVA glue on this. These are not pieces that are going to come apart again. And I've got lots of little spring clamps that I can use to help align the parts. It was kind of cute when my kids were young. They used to buy me tools, and these little plastic ones, I don't use them very often. But when I've got small parts like this, they're perfect for the job. So there's one. I've got some good glue squeeze out. Nice clean joint there. I'll stack on the next one. I'm now going to put some garnet shellac on. You can see that's pretty dark. So I'm just going to apply it to a bristle brush here. Allow me to get a quick build up on it. And we'll see how this works. That one's a little too red. That one's a lot red. So it looks like I need to go darker here. So I can take either of these and put a black or a dark brown on, and that should get us where we need to be. Okay, I've mixed up some darker stain here, sanded this piece. Let's see how this works. So it's going on dark. It's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to be impatient with it and wipe off a little bit, just see what it looks like. Okay, I think we're getting into the zone there. Wipe off a little bit more. Yeah, with the garnet shellac on top of that, that's the right tone. Okay, so now hit it with the shellac. Let's see what it looks like. Need to put a little bit more on there. It's just a touch too brown. Okay, so I need a little bit more red in there, and we're good to go. Okay, so here we go. So I'll just cover the whole piece, come back, wipe it off, let it dry, and then start putting the shellac on. I've taken the clamps off here and cleaned off the glue, but you can see there's still some lines here. So I'm just going to take some stain, work it into that space, and then wipe off the excess. You see how that disappears? So it makes it much less noticeable. I'll do the same thing to the bottom one here. After 4 coats of shellac, the finish is starting to build, but it's not quite where it is here. There's still some pores that are visible. So just to show you what it looks like here. There's the break, the transition. There's the other transition down this side and down this side. So it's getting there. A few more coats. We'll see what it looks like. I've got the last coat of shellac on here, and shellac is naturally glossy. So I need to rub that down a bit, but I want this to harden up a little bit before I do that. So I'm going to assemble the cabinet and then rub it down afterwards. But let me show you what the leg looks like. So here's the outside of the leg. This is the part that you're going to see most, and here's the front. And the color is difficult to see here, so I'll get it in the natural light once I get it assembled. We'll take a closer look at it. This is the inside. There's a bit of an imperfection where that shelf is going to hit, but it's not going to be visible. And there's the back. Before our business became a furniture repair business, I used to design and build custom woodworking pieces. But I find repairing pieces, they've got challenges with them, they're smaller pieces of work, and I'm helping out a lot of people in terms of saving some furniture. So let's get this piece back together again. So to attach the leg at the top here, I've just cleaned all the residue off the screw here. I'm just going to use this like a dowel to keep that in place. The nails will keep it from wanting to pull out. So here I'm just going to reinsert that finishing nail that I kept in there, and then on the bottom shelf I'll have to put a new nail in. This is the nail here I pulled out of this, so the nail will go through the leg and into the shelf. I just need to measure the distance here to get it the same over here, so the shelf will be level, and then I can drill a pilot hole for the finishing nail. To fill the hole from the finishing nail, I'm just using some burn-in wood filler. This is a wax product that you just use a soldering iron for. Choose the right color. Fill it in. Just let it cool down a little bit, and then come back with a razor blade. Put a little bit of shellac on that, it'll disappear. Okay, I can now put the door back on, and then we'll take it in some natural light and take a look at the final product. This antique display cabinet is now ready to go back to the customer. I hope you enjoyed this video. We've got lots in our library. I'll leave another one here for you to enjoy. Thank you for watching Fixing Furniture.